America could possibly be a big tournament for Canadian players to get recognized elsewhere. I feel like we've had this conversation before, even when they were qualifying for the World Cup and being able to move on to other European teams. But for one player in particular, that could be very true. I'm talking about the Iceman, Jonathan David. And that is because Lille president Olivier Letang has actually said that Jonathan David can leave the club this summer. This reported by Fabrizio Romano. So Letang coming out confirming Euro David. Their contracts are up and they can walk. So how much does this actually raise the stakes wheels for Jonathan David at Copa America to also just raise his market value even higher? And we'll get into other players too who could possibly benefit. But what about Jonathan David here and where this guy is, who's second all time on the Canadian national team for goal scorer? He's right behind, nipping at the heels of Kyle Larin. What do you make of this news?
It's interesting, but it shouldn't surprise. Lille is playing in the Champions League next year, but there's no doubt about it. This is a selling club. And with financial fair play playing such a big impact and these young clubs trying to get value in return for some of their players as much as they can, this seems to be a good time for Jonathan David to be in the shop window. So for the club, for the player, it's a chance to continue to impress. I will say, if you're any club across European football and you're just basing any take that you have on David just based on Copa America, it's rather foolish to me. I mean, his track record playing for Lille, he has the most goals for the club dating back 80 years. He's like rinsed. He blew past Eden Hazard. He was one of the top goal scorers in European football over the course of last season as well. And he's 24 years of age. Look, if I'm David, yeah, I can run down my contract. I can play in the Champions League. I wonder if he goes to any other club, whether he's a chance to start in the Champions League next season. A new format, another good opportunity there. So I don't think he has to go, Andy. But if this is something that Lille want to push, I think that David would absolutely go along with it for another opportunity. So yeah, a big tournament for him, but I don't think it should or will be make or break.
How are you feeling about it, Ollie?
I think it actually could have quite a big impact. And I understand, like, you don't want to base transfer decisions on a stretch of a few games at a major tournament. History tells us that that's often a very bad idea. There's plenty of examples of that littered through major tournaments. But I just think with Jonathan David's, like, firstly, I think this summer something has to happen. He's going into the last year of his contract. There's no way that Lille will just allow that to be run down. They need him to make a decision or themselves to make a decision. So I think we will see either a sale or a contract extension. And the question is, if it's going to be a sale, like, who is willing to come in that will give Jonathan Davids a meaningful step up on what he would get at Lille next season, which is Champions League football, which is a team, you know, that consistently competes at the top end of Ligue 1. And I think if he's going to get that kind of move and find a club that's willing to pay the money and give him a prominent role in their team that is a big step up from Lille or even a smaller step up, I think there's still a feeling with Jonathan Davids that this is clearly a very, very good player, great age, a lot of things to like about his game. But we're still waiting for kind of maybe that breakout moment at the highest of levels, whether it's the Champions League, whether it's at a major tournament like Copa America. Can he go and really be the guy for Canada or for Lille that leads the team, scores goals, and makes a big impact against the highest caliber of opposition? And I think if that happens this summer and he has a great tournament for Canada, it does push his prospects in terms of the next club he's going to be playing for. So he's shown the consistency. He's double-digit goals every year, 24 last season, 19 this season, but a lot of the underlying numbers were up, and it was just really the penalties that were down. I think it's kind of that top-level impact against the highest caliber of teams that the other clubs want to see if they're going to spend big money on this player.
Jordo?
Quickly, I just want to add, I know you shouldn't buy a player based on tournament form, so I totally agree with Wheels. But Copa America and the Euro, they're all the time where eyeballs are just on you. And people want to see big players step up in big moments. And that is the time for these tournaments. So for Jonathan David, I think obviously strikers or players in general want to be their best selves and score. But if you can have that moment, whether it's a goal against Argentina, whatever it might be, where eyeballs are looking at you and everyone's talking about you, that does affect club football and transfer fees and how that lasting impression that's on you, for sure.
But that's why I think it matters more for Lille and maybe adding a little bit more in terms of what the transfer kitty would look like rather than the player. He's in a great position. He either runs down his contract and he can sign a bigger contract with whatever club he wants, and he'll be even that much more appealing because he doesn't have to go on, the team won't have to go on and pay a transfer fee. So this is a bigger tournament for Lille than I think Jonathan David. His trajectory is A-okay the way it is.
Anyone else, Wheels, like when it comes to this Canadian squad that you think if they have a big tournament could widen some eyes globally?
All aboard, choo-choo. We're all in the Ismail Kone train here because at 21 years of age, size, talent, ability, ceiling, he ticks all the boxes. Wouldn't surprise me if he moves on. Potentially this summer, won't come cheap. A couple other players to keep an eye on. Derek Cornelius, he's playing in season right now for Malmo. I mean, they're another selling club. If I'm a European side looking at this Canadian team, I'm like, where did this Moise Bombito player come from? Like, what's the deal with him? Because he has size, strength, wherewithal. That battle with Brian Brobby, a top player against the Netherlands, showed you that he can be a really tough defender, one of the quickest center backs around. So the two center backs for Canada and Ismail Kone, they'd be right at the top of the list. And, oh yeah, what about the interest Real Madrid have in Alphonso Davies? Where does that situation go? And again, if Davies plays, out of his skin at this World Cup, just plays at another level, then what does that mean for a potential transfer? How much Real Madrid may want to spend a little bit more to make that that spend a little bit easier? So those are the names I'm looking out for.
Yeah, really exciting to see what these players can do. And with Copa fast approaching, as we know, first up for them will be Argentina. We know there have been some changes to Jesse Marsch's roster. The updates that we can give are Charles Brim and Dominic Zator have been released. They're sent back to their clubs. Added Jason Russell-Rowe and Ali Ahmed. So they've been named to the roster now. Jordo, when you even just look at these two players, in particular coming on board, what do you make of them being added now by Jesse Marsch?
Well, that was the one thing that we talked about. We mentioned it on One Nation, and just Ali Ahmed not being in camp. And there's a part of me, once I said it, I'm like, he'll probably be in the 26-man roster, and he was, just because of his quality. I think a bigger question when you look at the young man is where would he play, because he's so versatile. And with the system, if you call it a 4-2-2-2, like you can essentially play him on the wing, you can play him in the middle. He could be a super sub coming off the bench with just his pace and wheels. We mentioned so many times like how gangly and maybe unorthodox he is, but how it works for him. And just that press. If you're going to play the system, you need legs and someone to do that. I guess my question mark with the squad is not so much Russell-Rowe and Ahmed coming in. It's maybe who's a replacement later in the match up top. Like if you're going to play a Laren, like is Marsch requiring on a Jason Russell-Rowe? Is Theo Bair coming off the bench? Is it Ubo? Like, who's gonna be the former Cavallini? Like, who's gonna be a guy to maybe finish games? If it's tied 1-1, are you gonna go for it? And maybe someone that has fresh legs and go for a goal. All these three players I just mentioned have different capabilities and different attributes, but we didn't really get to see Marsch make a sub for someone up top. And who is really tickling his fancy? Who's really a player that could fit into the system, could maybe disrupt opposition's back line. And I'm just curious about that part, because I think everything else seems like a well-oiled machine if you're just going off of the match against France.
Ollie?
Yeah, firstly on Ali Ahmed, I'm really intrigued to see him with this team. We'll see what kind of role he gets. But I think in terms of profile, he looks interesting to me in the role that Liam Miller's been playing on the left-hand side. So I think Miller has certainly done enough to be the guy who starts there in the opening game against Argentina, but I think Ahmed has the skill set being that kind of right-footed player who rolls in from the left. I think that could be an interesting fit in the way Jesse Marsch has set this team up so far. So he intrigues me. Then in terms of just looking at the squad for Copa America, I believe they need to make one cut if I've counted the roster up correctly, and it would make more sense. Obviously, they've left Brim and Zator back in Europe. You would think if the cut is going to come from a player who is based in Europe, it would have already happened. So maybe it's an MLS player, just logically there. I'm not sure, but it's a tough one to pick. I think kind of inclined to agree that maybe up front will be where someone will be left out. But I think there's probably a list of 5 or 6 players who you could make a case for just being on the outside looking in right now.
Just really quickly, speaking with Jesse Marsh ahead of the fixtures, he shed a little bit of light on what his thinking was, and I think that his preference was to play those European players based upon the fact that Ahmed was playing in Vancouver and Russell Rowe was playing against Pachuca in CONCACAF Champions Cup final. I think they would have been part of it if it didn't include that extra travel on short rest, which made that whole thing difficult. And I think that he's trying to give players a look. You're going to need more than 26 players as this program moves forward here over the next couple of years. So I think it's smart to kind of rotate in, rotate out, and get some of those fringe players on in that first game against the Netherlands when it kind of got away from them, give them some experience and give them a real look in a competitive game. So I have a feeling that, he said that there was no doubt about it. That was before the game against France, that it sounded like Theo Bair was going to Copa America. So there are players that you didn't see play in those games that I still think can step up and play a role. And we'll see which one of those strikers. Ugbo Bear coming off really solid seasons. Russell Rose in good form right now as well. I think it's just a matter of training and what Jesse Marsh sees, and whether it's Tani Oluwaseyi as well. He was a late player called in. He's got pace and a little bit of a different profile than all of them. And really quickly on Ali Ahmed, it's not going to be like for like. I think that now that Loré is fit, he can slot in at right back. He can slot in as the backup left back as well. I would really consider him to play as some central midfield depth. He played there in the Gold Cup for Canada last year, and I think that he's better than some of the options that we saw over the two games against Netherlands and France. I just think that his profile in the way that he plays with the athleticism and the way that Eustachio and Kone play, I think Ahmed's more of a fit in those areas than some of the players that we saw back up in the central midfield role.
So guys, Jordo and I had this conversation on One Nation, and I kind of want to throw it your way. Just like your gut reaction, Ollie, starting 11 against France, is that your starting 11 against Argentina, or would you change something?
I think it's the same, yeah.
Wheels, how you feeling?
I'm not touching it. Looks good to me.
Yeah, there you go. That's okay. So we're all in agreement there. Let's look ahead now, gentlemen, to another big tournament happening this summer. That would be Euro 2024. So let's get to our Tony Bet top picks. That's right. Euros begin on Friday. Off the top, I usually tease Ollie on what he's wearing. I decided not to and just save it for this segment. Whatever. Remember when you lost to Italy in PKs at the last Euros?
You didn't qualify 5 times.
How are the last two World Cups, Petrillo? How are the last two World Cups?
We were resting because we had a trophy. We brought a trophy. We were just like, we're going to chill. We're just going to chill out right now.
Yeah,
I got your back, Ollie.
You guys love the summer at home.
Whatever. You know what? It's coming home. If I hear that one more time, I'm just gonna laugh because it ain't.
Apparently, it's coming home.
Should be safe for the World Cup, by the way, not the Euro. So
exactly. That's more of the saying for the World Cup. But I feel like you guys are so desperate for a trophy. You say it at everything now, even friendlies. It's coming home. Okay, I digress. I'm making fun of you. But let's pick some top picks for this tournament. England are plus 333 favorites to win Euro. Ollie, are you taking that line or putting your money somewhere else?
I'm not taking it.
Put your money where your mouth is.
I'm not taking it. I do think England have a very good chance of this tournament. I think they're one of the stronger teams for sure, but I think the odds tend to be too short on England at most tournaments, so I won't be taking them. France would be the pick. Just in terms of on paper, I still think they're the strongest team, but I'm going to go a little bit more of an outsider. I'm going to go with the Netherlands. I find them intriguing at this tournament. I think they have a really, really strong defensive group. Van Dijk, Ake, De Ligt, Van der Ven, the wingbacks as well. We saw what Frimpong is capable of doing against a world-class player like Alphonso Davies in that friendly last week. So they're intriguing to me. I know they've lost Frankie de Jong, which is obviously a big blow for them. I still think in that midfields. Yeah, that one doesn't bother me so much. I still think in the midfield they've got some really interesting young players. Reinders has been a bit of a breakout player for AC Milan. Xavi Simon is a really talented young player. And I don't think you necessarily need a top-class centre-forward to win a tournament. So I think there's enough there for them to be pretty tight defensively and get it done up front. And the pathway isn't too bad for them either, I think.
They won a Euro. It was in Germany, 88, Ollie.
There you go. It's all aligning. Tricky group, but if they can get through that, they could be on a run.
Where are you at with that, Wheels?
I'm going the best team with the easiest group and the easiest path through the knockout phase. And that is Portugal at plus 620.
I know
They're
my guy.
deeper and as good as anyone in this tournament at plus 620. You're getting more juice than England, France, or Germany in a squad that stands up against them. Their group is exceptionally easy with Turkey, Georgia, and Czechia in it. Beyond that, they wouldn't play a team that goes on to win their group until the semifinals of this competition. They have the cleanest path of any team potentially going forward. So the knockout draw plays into it as well. So I just look based upon the path that, fewer landmines to hit, and a really, really good squad that can beat you in a lot of different ways. Portugal at plus 620, no doubt about it.
Wow. Ronaldo's still looking ridiculous.
Weak link.
Jordan? Oh,
I played the highlights today in Portugal against Ireland for my son. He had no interest in it, but I grabbed his head when Ronaldo scored 2 with the left. And I said, this guy will probably be playing when my son is a teenager. Like, he is just unbelievable. Portugal's my wild card, but we'd be remiss to not talk about Team Africa. For those who Kunle Dadaluke said that in his answer for Pacific FC, who he thinks is going to win, which is France at plus 380. For me, they have to be the outright winners. I think, obviously, you can't. Portugal's my wild card, and they have so much depth in that squad. But the country that has the most depth going into this tournament, for me, is France. They have 2 full sides. Like, they're so dangerous, and I can't help but think that they're going to win it all.
They're in a collision course. They're in a collision course with
France.
England in the semifinal, and I'm kind of
you.
I just don't
and
know.
I think
France.
I feel like France against England in the final. Also, their group. I know like
semis it would play
Austria,
out if they both win their group.
Poland and Netherlands, but they're getting out of that group for sure. And then I think they'll deal with England. It sounds bad to say, but I can't put England above these guys. I can't.
I'm going to keep with you, Jordan. Golden Boot winner. Who do you think that will be for 2024?
My heart wants to back it and say Kylian Mbappe, but I'm going to pick someone because he loves a big moment, unlike anyone else, unlike any other player we've seen. Cristiano Ronaldo at plus 1,183. If I had money, I am betting on this man in a big tournament for Portugal. I just told you about the highlights against Ireland. I understand that's a friendly right before. But if he gets in the box, it's almost like he's going to, like you look at him, you just watch him, he's about to score. Every single time he's a threat. He has Felix, he has Fernandez, all these guys that are setting him up, and he's going to be a big dog in big moments. I say he's bagging and racking a lot of goals this tournament.
Easy group.
All right, Wheels, who are you picking as your Golden Boot winner?
Well, I think that if Mbappe doesn't do it, and at the market, at the odds, I don't think you can back Mbappe. I don't think you're getting enough juice. What about Romelu Lukaku at plus 1399? He had 14 goals, which was the most in European qualifying. And talk about an easy group. Belgium in with Ukraine, who I actually like. I think Slovakia and Romania. I mean, they can score multiple goals with players like De Bruyne and Doku and Trossard, like playing around him. This guy, like, honestly, he needs to make amends for what was an absolute shocking World Cup. The chances that he missed were absolutely brazen. Like, I could have scored them. But I think this is the revenge tour here. Okay. And Lukaku at that price, it's ridiculously good. You got to make that bet. Plus 13.99.
All right, Ollie.
Well, Ronaldo could fill his boots in the group stage. He loves a goal against Moldova or San Marino or someone. So there's a chance of that happening. I'm going to go with my England pick for this one, Jude Bellingham. He's going to play a higher role like he does for Real Madrid. I think he's going to score a few goals in this tournament.
Nice. Okay. You know what group you guys haven't mentioned yet, because it is the group of death, is Italy's group. Spain,
Croatia might win that group. Italy better beat Albania in that first game. I'll tell you that much.
It is a group
yeah,
of
they
death,
better. You'll know
sure.
if they didn't, because you might hear something echo in the city. Finally, let's get to who we think the best player of the tournament will be, Wheels.
So the last 5 Euros, 4 defenders and a goalkeeper have won player of the tournament, including your boy Donnarumma in the last Euro. So I'm not picking a striker here. I'm going to pick the best player on the best team, the team that I think is going to win it. Bruno Fernandes at plus 26.99. Assists, goals, he can provide it all. He's a heartbeat of that side. And if I think that Portugal is going to win it, it's got to be a player from the winning team. Bruno Fernandes at a big juicy number. I've already
That
made
makes
that play,
sense.
by the way. Plus 26.99. Wow.
Jordan?
You're really invested. Yeah, I'm gonna go with Prince
Mhm.
Jude. Hey Jude Bellingham plus 786. I think this is
Yeah.
his
Then
thing.
France ain't winning
Love
the
that pick.
France ain't winning Euro then.
And no, it's tough, but like, yeah, I mean, I couldn't go past all these names and not put Jude there off of the season he's had, how big of a moment this is for him in this country. Give me Jude Bellingham.
Okay.
Do you know
Ollie?
Southgate's his manager? No chance.
There's nothing wrong with Gareth Southgate. Maybe we'll get over that this summer. Wheels gave the stat, and I'm gonna stick with my winner as well. Virgil van Dijk at plus 5,740.
Go ahead, Virgil.
If Netherlands are going to win it, which I backed them to do, then he will be the key player and the player of the tournament.
All right. Let's remember these picks when Italy
number.
once again wins the cup.